There's an interesting uh, theme I keep running into in some of this literature talking about a higher consciousness or way of thinking. And it revolves around some teachings that I wasn't sure I understood or that seemed confusing to me. There's some places in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna where Sri Ramakrishna tells some of his devotees at different times, stop reasoning at this time. In the Way of the Pilgrim, there's a reference to not thinking, to stopping thought. And when I imagine that, and I bet that I'm not alone in this, when I think of somebody who doesn't think or who doesn't reason, I think immediately of a gullible person who's, you know, basically kind of a drooling idiot, as it were. And obviously, that's not what the scriptures would be talking about. That's nobody's ideal, to have somebody who can't think or who can't reason, who can't figure out logic. So that's obviously not what's being talked about. But what do they mean? This practice of taking the name and repeating it continually in the mind and holding the mind on an individual thought has opened up a lot of notions of what they might be talking about. In the sense that if you can learn to focus the mind, not fritter it away with whatever it happens to be thinking about at the moment as it kind of hops from flower to flower, as it were, with no real focus. And if you never actually learn how to bring your mind into focus, to keep it on a particular thought for a particular amount of time, or to bring it to bear on a particular question or insight, then you've got a tool that really doesn't work to its full capacity. There are certain things about us which are known before the mind knows, as it were. Remember, I talked a little while back about the fact that the present is already gone by the time we register it in the mind, because of the time it takes for the senses to get that information to the brain and for the brain to interpolate it through its appropriate centers to give you the symbols and ideas representative of what you're experiencing. So you're always in a lag. So I'm very interested in what is it that is known before the mind knows. And there can be only one thing in that. And that would be Sat Chit Ananda that the sages talk about. This nature that's innate, that is in fact what and who we are, fundamentally, meaning before logic, before reflection, before thought. What is it that comes out? What is it that is human, that is the human being? And that self is of the nature of love, as we've talked about, in and of itself. It's an ideal. It's an unchanging, perfected ideal, because it exists before the changes introduced by the senses, before the changes of a mind moving from one thought to a next. And so this idea of not thinking and not reasoning is saying, stay secure in your center, in what is known before the cacophony of noise, color, distraction, senses, when you begin the thinking process. To remain in your centered self, unchanging, unneeding, really beyond attribute, as it were, to sit in that place. And when the mind then is used consciously with awareness as a tool to be able to be brought to bear on a single idea or a single thought or a single question or problem, that is the power of mind, that is the power of the pure intelligence that gets used to its fullest extent when you're in charge of the mind, when you're able to make it not think, when you're able to hold it in a place of non-reasoning, where it's able to stay secure and stable in simply being. So it's a training process that allows you to unlock the real power of mind, the real power of your nature, which loves, knows, and exists, to be able to control that amazing gift that we experience, and to be able to bring it upon the problem of knowing who we are, what we are. Someone may be happy with being called a human being, but that's a contrived idea. What is a human being? What is an animal? What is consciousness? What is awareness? What are all of these things? Words do not mean we know them. But to sit in a place before words, in a state of being them, can open some portals, some avenues of wisdom, of a very deep kind of subtle knowledge that isn't presented by sensory input, that isn't presented by the comparing and relating of random thoughts in a web of mind, but it infers a real state of clarity, an amazing state of power, and a very satisfying and deeply rooted image of knowing.